On June 6, 1980, at precisely 3:30 in the afternoon, the weather was stormy and the rain was pouring heavily. Despite the terrible weather, a 57-year-old man decided to leave his house to buy some things. His wife warned him, saying, "Come on, the weather is not suitable at all." But he refused. He told her, "I won't be long. I'll just get the stuff from the supermarket next to the house." Pay close attention because today's story is very strange, and we need your help in the comments to possibly find a solution. So remember, he was heading to the supermarket next to their house. Time passed, and more than an hour went by, but the man didn't return. His wife went out to look for him but couldn't find him. Night fell, and there was still no sign of him. With no other option, his wife reported his disappearance to the police. The investigation began, and the first suspect in the case was his wife, who had reported him missing because she was the last person to see him. The police suspected that she might have kidnapped him and was hiding him somewhere. They suspected her because the police found out that her husband had never entered the supermarket in the first place. 5 days passed, and there was still no trace of him until a man named Trevor Park called the police and told them he had seen the body at his workplace. The police went to the location he mentioned and discovered that it was the body of the man I told you about at the beginning. You might think the story ends here, but the surprise is that the whole thing started from the moment they found the body. From that time until 2005, a new story would emerge every now and then related to this case because the body they found was not normal at all. The place where it was found and the way the body had gotten there drove the investigators crazy. Everyone believed that this person had died in a very unusual way. Things got even more complicated shortly after because something happened to the officer who examined the body that was incredibly strange. Everyone then became convinced that whoever killed this man was definitely not human. The story begins with a man named Zigmund Adamski, born in 1923 in a small village in eastern Holland. Zigmund's life was unremarkable, marked by simplicity, poverty, and harsh conditions. He grew up in this environment, and due to the strict laws of the Soviet Union at that time, there was no other option for Zigmund when he grew up but to work as a coal miner. Back then, coal was the oil of the era, and it was the primary focus of all the Soviet Union countries. At the age of 15, Zigmund started working in a coal mine near his home. After years of hard work, at the age of 33, he decided to start a family and got married. His life was filled with challenges, but he faced them with determination and resilience. After 4 years of marriage, Zigmund gave in to reality and decided to escape and migrate from Poland to England, hoping for a better life. Indeed, in 1961, he traveled and settled in a small town in Yorkshire, England. Ironically, he couldn't find any work and was forced to work again as a coal miner. He continued in this job for 19 years until June 6, 1980. As I mentioned before, on that date, Zigmund decided to leave his house to buy some supplies, but he disappeared afterwards and no one knew his whereabouts. 5 days later, his body was found in a coal yard on the outskirts of Yorkshire by a man who contacted the police. The person who discovered the body was the owner's son, Trevor Parker. This is where things started to get complicated. Trevor said he saw the body from the window of his father's office. If he hadn't been up there, he wouldn't have been able to see the body, and you'll understand why shortly. A few minutes later, specifically at 4 p.m., the police arrived at the yard and asked Parker about the location of the body. He pointed them to the top of the coal pile, which was over 3 meters high, making the body visible only from above. The coal was small and fine, meaning anyone climbing the pile would leave footprints. Officer Alan Godfrey and his colleague climbed the pile. Remember Alan's name well because he plays a crucial role in the second half of the story. They began examining the body and soon called for a specialized team to investigate what they saw. When the investigators arrived, they noticed that despite the body being on a coal pile, Zigmund's clothes were clean, with no coal marks except on the side of his body that was in contact with the coal. Now, focus on the details they discovered. Firstly, Zigmund's clothes were clean, indicating that whoever placed the body on the pile didn't drag it up but rather carried it gently. However, carrying someone up such a high pile is extremely difficult because the coal would shift and cause the person to slide down. The second possibility was that the killer used a crane to lift Zigmund and place him on the pile. But this was unlikely as it would have been noticed by the guards. So, despite its difficulty, the first possibility seemed more plausible. But the shocking part was that the police found no footprints either on the pile or on the surrounding dirt ground. This led to the first perplexing mystery. How did the body get to the top without leaving any footprints?
The second thing they noticed was that Zigmund was wearing his pants inside out, with the back pockets in front and the front pockets in the back. Additionally, his shoes were on the wrong feet, right on the left and left on the right. There were two possibilities. Zigmund wasn't wearing his clothes when he died, and someone who couldn't tell left from right dressed him. The person who dressed him was in a hurry to dispose of the body and didn't pay attention to the directions. However, this second possibility is weak because anyone, even in a hurry, would likely get the directions right. This leads to the second mystery. Why were his clothes on backward? They also noticed that his facial expression indicated fear. His eyes were wide open, his mouth was contorted, and his facial muscles were tense. His skin had a yellowish tint, suggesting he was terrified. This was supported by the autopsy, which revealed that the cause of death was a heart attack that occurred 4 hours before the body was found. Additionally, there were burn marks on his shoulder, neck, and the back of his head, along with a gray gel-like substance on the burned areas. Researching Zigmund's case, you'll find that no one has ever identified this substance, with the only statement being that science couldn't determine its origin. This mystery seems intentional. Here's another peculiar detail. Zigmund's beard had been shaved a day before the body was found. This suggests that the kidnapper took care to shave him on the 4th day, and he died of a heart attack on the 5th day. The police and the investigation committee had no answers to how the body ended up there, the cause of the burns, the nature of the substance, why his clothes were backward, or how he was able to shave while being held captive. These unanswered questions led to speculation about aliens. This theory was fueled by the fact that Zigmund was a peaceful man with no apparent reason for being kidnapped or dying in such a manner. After a few days, the case was closed and authorities prohibited further investigation. This situation remained unresolved for 6 months. Then, 6 months later, something strange happened that seemed to confirm the alien theory. On December 18, 1980, at precisely 12:15 a.m., an event occurred witnessed by Alan Godfrey, the police officer who examined Zigmund's body. As I mentioned before, keep Alan in mind. At 12:15 a.m., Officer Allen was investigating a case involving repeated reports of a strange phenomenon occurring in the farms around the village where Zigmund lived. Cows were disappearing from the farms and then reappearing. Coincidentally, it was the same officer who saw Zigmund's body investigating this matter at midnight, like a scene from a horror movie. From more than a meter away, in shock, the officer instinctively grabbed his radio and tried to contact the police station, but there was no signal, just like in a horror movie. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, he closed his eyes and opened them to find himself parked in his car 5 kilometers away from where he had been. He was barefoot, with his shoes placed on the seat next to him. He looked at the clock and was shocked to see it was now 12:45 a.m. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled 5 kilometers, removed his shoes, and 30 minutes had passed. Despite this, he wasn't scared or affected by the situation. He continued to the farm where the cows had disappeared. When he arrived, he found the farm empty of cows and the barn door was closed with no hoof prints in sight. How had the cows disappeared from the barn without leaving any tracks? The story of Officer Allen spread quickly, with many believing that aliens were responsible for Zigmund's abduction. Theories circulated that aliens had taken him for experiments, and that he hadn't known who had kidnapped him. On the 4th day, they shaved his beard, and on the 5th day, he saw them, was terrified, and died of a heart attack. After he died, they dressed him incorrectly because they didn't know how to do it properly. They then used a flying saucer to place him on top of the coal pile in broad daylight. This wasn't my conclusion. This was the prevailing narrative at the time. You might find it laughable and illogical, But let me tell you that Zigmund Adamski's case is documented as a paranormal phenomenon, and even official sources recorded the incident as an alien abduction. Many consider this incident as definitive proof of alien existence. Additionally, there were numerous reports in Yorkshire of UFO sightings and unexplained phenomena like disappearing livestock and mysterious crop circles. Returning to the man in the photo at the beginning of the video holding a book, it's Officer Alan Godfrey, the same officer who saw the UFO in the fields and was the first to find Zigmund Adamski's body. After telling his story, Alan became famous and attracted significant media attention. Seeing an opportunity, he decided to write a book about the strange and mysterious events in the village where he worked. The book became very popular, and people believed him, making Alan a well-known figure in the discussion of alien existence. In 2005, the Adamski family revealed that they had discovered Zigmund had borrowed a large sum of money from a loan shark and had failed to repay it. It's likely this person kidnapped and tortured Zigmund, leading to his death. However, by this time, Alan had already become an author and had a following that believed in his stories. They dismissed the Adamski family's claims, and Alan, now a famous writer, stated, "If a human kidnapped Zigmund, why has no one figured out what the substance on his body was?" Alan's supporters and those who believed in the existence of aliens agreed with him and dismissed the Adamski family's account. Why? Because people love a good story. Personally, I find it incredibly coincidental that the same officer who found the body was also the one to witness the UFO. Moreover, he was investigating a case at 12:15 a.m., like in a horror movie. For those questioning the mysterious substance, why hasn't anyone identified it to this day? Let me suggest that perhaps there was no gel-like substance at all, and that the entire story was a fabrication by Officer Allen, who transformed into a famous figure from a simple village policeman. It's possible the substance was something ordinary, but certain parties want us to continue believing in aliens, keeping us in a state of fear and uncertainty, thinking there's a superior force controlling us. I'm not denying that Zigmund's case is genuinely strange and full of unanswered questions, assuming the story is accurate and not exaggerated. However, Alan's book is full of nonsense. How did it become so popular, and who helped him promote it? He was just a policeman without means. Answer that question yourself in the comments.